Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Gently Used Human. Today, I have the honor of sharing a conversation with Sabrina Zohar, a renowned relationship coach whose wisdom has transformed countless lives. Sabrina's personal journey from navigating toxic dynamics to building healthy, authentic connections is incredibly inspiring. How growing up in a dysfunctional environment led her to repeat the same cycles of toxic relationship patterns, but through relentless self-discovery, she has become a voice of clarity in the dating world. In this episode, we delve into some of the most pressing questions on dating and relationships. How do we navigate the minefield of modern dating without losing ourselves? How do we stop seeking validation from others and instead cultivate security? And perhaps most importantly, how do we really show up in relationships? Sabrina's approach is both relatable and practical. Her vulnerability in sharing her own hardships, including how she hit rock bottom and used it as a stepping stone for growth, offers hope and actionable insight for anyone struggling with relationships. From learning how to set healthy boundaries to understanding attachment dynamics, this episode is packed with tools you can apply to your own life. On a personal note, this conversation created space for me to reflect on my own journey and the question, how do I want to show up in a relationship? Sabrina's ability to navigate the complexities of connection while staying true to herself inspired me to reconsider how I show up as a partner, a friend, and a human. I hope our discussion encourages you to explore the same questions in your own life. Oh, and a quick note before we dive in. Sabrina speaks openly of her experiences with violence in her childhood. If this is a sensitive topic for you, please take care while listening or skip ahead as needed. Your well-being is always the priority. All right, let's do this. Welcome to The Gently Used Human. I feel like, A, we're best friends.
Yes.
B, it's only been 5 minutes. And C, I want it to last forever. Do you have that effect on most people?
I mean, it depends on who you're asking. Some people, they're like 5 minutes is more than enough. And for some, 5 is not enough. But I'm here for it.
I'm here for you. And we all are. And I think we're so excited, me and all the gently used humans out there are so excited to get your wisdom on how the fuck do we date? How the fuck do we make it through the minefield of relationships? And how do we just be as awesome as you are?
Oh, shucks. So that's just the whole episode?
That's just basically.
We're just going to be, circle jerking, and I love it.
Basically, yes. I would love to start with, how did you become, you're a big time relationship coach now. You give advice to everyone and everyone's mom, and everyone is just like obsessed with you. I'm obsessed with you and your advice. You really are so articulate, so brilliant, and so clear and without losing the nuance. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited. For me, I was just like, I am a very gently used human. And I was a former hot mess. Like, there's no other way. I think for me along my journey, it's like narcissistic father, people-pleasing mother. Very textbook classic, like grew up in an environment that didn't allow me to have a sense of self. And so growing up and trying to navigate and understanding why weren't friendships working? Why could I not feel accepted? And it's like, well, it starts within you. And so as I kind of started to go along, moved to New York when I was 18, just like a day after 19, or it was like right around that time. And I really misunderstood what connection meant when I moved to New York, because I thought that meant, let me use my body. And if I have sex with you, well, then you're going to love me, right? You're going to automatically want me because I know what I'm doing. And unfortunately, what that led me to was like a bunch of people that were really interested in that aspect, but not interested in any other aspect. And so I hung my hoe hat up a minute ago, but I wore it for very proudly, waved that flag for a while. And I don't regret any of those experiences whatsoever, but they definitely taught me a lot. And then as I was kind of going along, I was single for 12 years in New York, on and off relationships, but nothing to call home about until I met the one, right? The guy that really crashed me to rock bottom. The one that was my father, married exactly down to the way he spoke to me, down to the way that I felt with him and the way I was treated, and really wasn't understanding where that whole dynamic was coming from. Once we ended that was 2018, I started therapy because it was incredibly narcissistic. You see me now, for anyone that can actually see me, I was about 25 pounds lighter than I am, and to the point where people were asking hey, are you okay? And no one knew what was going on because I was scared to talk about it, because if I said what my partner would say to me, that everyone's face was I'm sorry, what did you just say? So I kept it secret. And then after that, I started to dive into therapy. I started to do inner child work personally, just like, oh, wow, I feel like a kid. Okay, let me explore this. Years later, moved to LA, dated like shit. It was all the same kind of repetition. And what really started this journey, is a very long-winded answer of me answering this, was me.
And we love it.
Was me realizing there wasn't actually anything that was helping me. You know, it was a bunch of the clickbait of like, if a guy doesn't text you every day, he doesn't like you. So I adopted those mindsets, and I'm running around LA saying, but you're not texting me every day. Okay, well, that wasn't really helping. And then if they wanted to, they would. If they like you, you'll know. If not, you'll be confused. So I had all of this shit. Oh, here's a text to send to this guy to make him interested in you. All of this nonsense. And so when 2022, I was supposed to go to Shark Tank. I was on set, and it was like, this is it. I'm my clothing company software. This was going to be my future. They sent me home after 6 months of prep and everything, and that was just it. Sorry, we can't fit you on. And I hit rock bottom. My dog passed away like a month later. I broke up with this guy that I was dating that was avoidant, and I was like, I'm fucking done. And I took to the internet just to say, I have something to say. I'm scared of my limiting beliefs, but I need to push through that because I know there are people hurting like I am. And so that just kind of started this whole, like, I am unapologetically myself. I know that some people don't like it. That's cool. I'm not for you. And if you do, great. Then welcome on. Welcome to the family.
Yeah. I feel like we have to have had the experience of hitting some type of rock bottom over and over. I don't know why. I would love for wisdom to be acquired without a rock bottom, but I have yet to figure it out myself.
Isn't youth wasted on the young, right? Like, because I was going to say, like, I'm sure you've had your experience of a rock bottom.
I mean, when you're describing your relationship, I'm like, oh, shit. I have so been there. The one where I kept quiet, where I was like, I mean, I never had a model of what a relationship is. And that's one of the questions I even want to get to today. What is a relationship? I mean, what is connection? Because if you grew up, like both of us did, with shit models, like many of us did, then we either mirror that or we try to go in the opposite, which isn't actually the healthy choice either often.
To me, in a nutshell, like it's a very, very like layman's term, I see attachment as I need you, and I see connection as I want you. And so to me, that's like a very big difference, right? Like when I was dating and again, I'm not going to self-identify as like, I'm anxious. It's like, I mean, you've met me, I am. But I try to say like, I have parts of me that are anxious.
Beautiful.
Parts of me that are this, parts of me that are that, because it's like I'm a very full human with a lot of different parts.
Your anxiety is not the gestalt of who you are.
No, it's like she's there.
Yeah.
And she's there. But I also understand that like you can move past that. But like I really was that poster for like high anxiety in dating. And so for me, I was always waiting for, you're going to leave me, you're going to disappoint me, you're going to hurt me. And then once I started to understand, like when I met my partner, my now partner, who is just fucking awesome, but like he is more avoidant. And that is by nature his shit, his upbringing and all of his stuff. And like mine is anxious, right? We all have our stuff. But when we came together, it was really jarring, right? Like you meet somebody that's a little bit more healthy, like he's an incredibly healthy and secure person in who he is, but how he handles triggers is by going inwards, right? And the same with me, like I used to explode and scream and protest behavior. You can work on shit like that. Once we met, all of those, like everything started to connect to me of, wait a minute, a relationship is like one giant conversation. I don't know about you. We talk all the fucking time about like, hey, I didn't love this. Or, hey, you know what? I really loved this. Thank you for supporting me this way. And what I've really noticed is like, my mom has always said, you got to love yourself more than the need to be loved by other people, because you were good before this person. You'll be good after. Like this person's an addition to my life. He is not instead of my life. And that to me, I think is the big differentiation between a real connection is like, I really want you in my life, but I don't need you in my life. But when I was attaching to people, if I didn't get a text in like a 20 minutes, that was it. I was already texting all my friends. I knew it. This person doesn't like me, reaffirming my core beliefs before it even happened so that I could hurt myself first without allowing someone else to hurt me. Control.
Sorry, can we just pause? My partner hasn't texted me in 15 minutes and I have to burn down his house. I know that feeling.
Right?
It's intense. And it's like, for so long, it's always about them. And it's so hard to turn the vision around and see the mirror around and see yourself in it. It's like, because I also, like, I don't know about you, but I didn't know. Like, I assumed, like, my idea was that someone should text me 10 times a day. That's respectful. And if they don't, they're disrespectful. But I didn't have another model of what to base it on.
And that's, I think, our biggest issue, especially with the digital dating. I understand the confusion. I am not going to be, I think there was like one like media company took a quote I said and manipulated it to say, this coach says to never text. And I was like, that's not what I said.
No.
I was like, I'm not living under a rock. Like, I'm not saying that you should never. But what it is if your mood is determined based on if this person contacts you or not. And especially like, listen, let's be honest, a lot of this anxiety really culminates in the early stages of dating. And so I love to focus on that early stages of dating so that we can lay a solid foundation. But this doesn't mean that doing some of this work, that once you're in a relationship, it just goes away. Because I don't know about you. Once I started a relationship, I was like, oh, this is when the work starts.
Yeah.
Got it.
Every day I wake up and go, this is when the work starts more.
Right? You're like, sometimes it's like choose violence. And I do. But I am curious, like with your partner, when you guys met, were you opposing or was he more secure? Like, how was that dynamic?
No, 100% opposing.
Okay.
And then it progressed. And it was like we had to climb to the extreme of our opposing kind of natures until we could be like, oh, shit, we're a perfect match to figure it out if we want to go this way. Because there are plenty of partners too. And I've been in relationships where like you're in the relationship now and I love him. He's so sweet. And you get to talk about everything. Like to me, that is such a fantasy. And I have tried and attempted that in previous relationships and they're like, you're too complex. And I was like, so sharing my needs for you is complexity because you're not used to hearing other people's needs or meeting their needs. Or my needs are too much. It's hard to determine in the mix of things what is what.
The too much, not enough thing was a fun game I played for a long time of like, I'm not good enough, but I'm too much.
How'd you get out of it?
Oh, well, how I got out of it was I had to realize like where I learned that from. Was like the exact place I learned. Because I remember I was saying that to my sister, and this is like the needle that turned kind of for me. Yeah. Was I was talking to her, and it's been like for anybody listening, I know it might not be attainable to talk to your family members about things. Like I don't talk to my father about anything that transpired because he's a narcissist. He doesn't believe he did anything wrong.
Yeah.
I don't talk to my brother right now because he's a flying monkey and he doesn't think anything happened. So it is being cognizant of like talking to the people you can. But my sister and I were walking down the street a couple years ago, and I said, I was like, I just feel too much. I feel too much. And she said, Sabrina, where'd you learn that from? And it just hit me. And I was like, Dad. I was like, growing up, I never felt like I was good enough to have his attention kept on me consistently. Yeah. But then I felt like I was too much because he would remove himself. And so if you showed an emotion, even something remotely as, I don't want to go there for dinner, caused, you would get hit. That would be it. Like you would get hit and he would leave for 2 weeks. Wow. So there was always this pressure of me being the culprit for this family breaking. Like I remember once I said, my sister and I got into a fight and he came out with his belt and that's how my dad would reprimand us. So I ran into my room and he was banging on the door saying, Sabrina, open, I swear I won't hurt you. I swear I won't hurt you. I just want to talk. And I was like 7 and I 8, I had braces and I remember that. And my mom was right behind him and my sister's crying and my brother's hiding in his room. Like none of us knew what to do. And the minute I opened the door, he punched me right in the face. Oh my God. And I just started bleeding everywhere. My mom started screaming and he left and that was it. And he was gone. I remember my brother sitting on the couch saying, how am I going to be the man of the house? I'm only 14. And that was that moment I was like, I did that. That was that internalization. Of course. So once I started to understand how this was manifesting of like, wait a minute, I feel like I'm too much. Okay, what feels too much, right? Yeah. Oh, well, I expressed myself to this person. Okay, well, do I genuinely believe that's too much? No, my father's narrative was emotions aren't safe. But I believe that it's really important. So I really had to reparent that little version of me to say, hey, you're safe now. You are safe to express yourself all day. And if that person doesn't like it, I do. And I'm here to listen. And it was a really big game changer for me. Now, it's not that easy. It's not like but I have to constantly talk that girl off her ledge because she's always ready to dive into you're going to be left. But once you really create that homeostasis internally of saving yourself, then when people when I dated and I changed the way I dated, I wasn't scared of being left because I know what I have that I am left with. And it's really fucking awesome.
I'm trying not to cry at this moment because that's so fucking moving. It's inspirational. I mean, I think it's our early childhood shit just fucks with us to such a degree that it's so hard to untangle. And and it's not simple.
No.
And I just realized your socks say fuck off, and I love that.
I stay very true.
You know what? I feel like that's my inner mantra for the rest of the day. It's so hard to untangle the things we've internalized and made about ourselves, the compensations we've made. It's it's such a journey. And you have, again, I appreciate how well you articulated your process of healing, knowing it is a continual journey.
I am curious your thoughts because I'm sure you hear this all the time, but like I think the struggle I get is, and thank you by the way, is for me it was easy because I'm like, well, I had pretty shitty parents, right? Like I love my mother. I would literally set myself on fire for that woman. I love every bone of that woman, but I also know she was not the best mother at the time, right? Like two conflicting truths I can hold. Whereas my father is like, it's a little tougher for me to loop that thought around. But I'm curious what you hear when you hear usually people say like, no, I had a perfect childhood. Now everything was great. I don't know where this came from because I think a lot of people are so used to saying, no, it was my ex-boyfriend when I was 25 and he was an asshole.
Yeah.
But then I'm like,
Yeah. I want to name two things before I answer that question. One is that you received what I said. And that to me is such a sign of deep, security and the ability to have healed significant wounds. Like to absorb someone's positive commentary on you. It's like, no, I can't imagine that's easy, right?
Yeah, because you're like, me? Like there's that little girl that's like, no, nobody likes you. No, he's not saying that to you. It's the girl behind you. And you're like, it's okay to just say thank you.
Yeah.
Because I used to do that. Like, oh, I got this on sale. It's not that nice. And now I'm just like, thank you.
I know. I see you, boo. And the other is that you can hold a dual truth. And that is a sign of something that when we have been significantly wounded, we cannot do. Like one of the signs of trauma is that we cannot hold duality. That this can be true and this can be true. My mom is a brave human being and she wasn't a good enough parent to me. And that ability to hold multiple truths is also a sign of deep healing. And so I just wanted to really name that because as many of us gently used humans are on the path of healing, those are two really clear signs that we're making the progress.
Absolutely. And I thank you for calling those out because I think it's important. That's why I love giving examples. And I'm like, this isn't about me. But we hear, like when people say, what is it sitting into the discomfort? Yeah. And they're like, I don't get it. And you're like, okay, here's an example of it. And it's, oh, so that's what that means. And you're like, there.
Exactly. And I can imagine coming from a father who has more narcissistic tendencies or has narcissism, that the idea of giving examples can be a little challenging.
Boundaries, everything was a struggle. I think people see me now and they're like, but look, you do all this. And it's like, I didn't 6 years ago. I was the girl. I remember it like it was yesterday when this guy in the middle of the night texted me. He was a DJ. And I lived in East Village because these are the people I was dating. And I was like 20. I don't even think I had 21 yet. Or maybe I just turned 21. And he texted me in the middle of the night while my mom was visiting. And I left. I snuck out of the house to go hook up with him because I thought that meant he liked me. And then I snuck. And I remember in the morning my mom being like, were you gone last night? And I was like, and she was just so disappointed. But she didn't say anything. And I think the reason I share stories like that is like, it takes time to learn how to say no. That doesn't work for me. Sorry, that's not an interest. And I also had to be cognizant that my prefrontal cortex was still cooking. I wasn't thinking of future me. I wasn't thinking of, okay, if I leave in the middle of the night, but then I'm going to be waking up I'm tired. I have to be up at 6. This doesn't work. Instead, it was, you choose me, I'll do anything. And that is something that like, it starts in stages. And I think oftentimes, I don't know about your healing journey, but at least for me, I didn't think I was until something happened and you're like, damn, I handled that differently,
Yeah. No, I love those moments where you're like, I would have handled that very, very differently. Points to me.
Yeah. Kudos. But yeah, and I think for me in those moments, like I look at healing very much and like this whole journey, same with dating. When I dated, because like somebody wrote into me the other day saying like, you're so dense, you don't get what it's like to date and you flaunt your partner. And I was like, I'm sorry, the 15 years of single life between LA and New York is not enough data for you for me to understand what you've been through. Like, I get it. I understand.
The person's hurting.
But 100%. And I was like, listen, my heart goes out. She kept saying, you're projecting onto me. And I was like, I'm just consistent. She's like, you're triggered. I was like, I'm just trying to call out what you're saying to me doesn't really, it's fine. Anyways, that's for another day. But I think something really, I don't remember.
Welcome to being famous, boo.
Haters mean you're doing something right.
The more you are known, the more you become a screen for projection. And it's an interesting process. And
it challenges you as a person.
It does challenge you as a person. And it offers the possibility of gently turning that projection screen into a mirror.
100%. I look at every single fucking thing that happens, every comment that I get that's negative or positive for that matter, as exploration, as I don't think anything happens to me. I think it happens for me.
Yeah.
So like when I had my cease and desist, when I've had, I the other day we lost an investment. I lost $60,000 in one night of an investment that I saved up for years to make, and it was gone overnight. And it's one of those moments that like, sure, I could sit here and say how unfair. And I was like, okay, let's be solution driven. What do I have control over? Well, not that, right?
Yeah.
Like that's gone.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's make adjustments elsewhere. I see every area of opportunity of what is this trying to tell me about myself? And I think that is a really, to me, strong way to be when you're coming, especially when you're dating and you're looking at this, because it's so easy to stay single and feel healed.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not triggered.
I have a secure earned attachment.
Yeah. And then
alone.
Exactly. Then you meet somebody and this person doesn't call you back or doesn't ask you on that date or doesn't reciprocate in the way that you wanted, and it's hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
So I really, really look at all of these opportunities, which brings us back to the looping of that
question.
Kind of like the I don't have trauma, to really try to look at like, well, wait a minute, where did I learn this from?
Yeah.
I didn't just learn this out of nowhere.
Yeah. We internalize so much that we're not aware of. Whether it's what our environment was like. It doesn't even have to be like, we could have great parents who are loving and be in an ecosystem of chaos and internalize that as our homeostasis.
100%.
And going back for a second, when my therapist gave me the certificate that of earned secure attachment, which I have on my wall, and
I want one.
and then getting into relationship, I was like, wait, where did that go? And I think this is a really important thing to address, because we can do deep work in individual therapy. We can do deep work on our own, but there's another layer of deep work that can only happen in relational dynamics.
100%. The guy I met before Ryan, it was at the same time.
Yeah.
And it always happens that way. At the same time. Because Mama was an avid dater. She wasn't passive by any means. Like I was out there. Even after Clem died, I was like, your life goes on. Like you've got to keep going. Clem was my best friend. He was my dog. I had him for 10 years. He got me through everything. And that was my object permanence. That's why it meant so much to me. He was the only security I had. So when I lost that, I was like, you're fucked. Like when you lose everything that you love, and I wasn't talking to my dad at the time, you're like, what else do I have to lose? But once I started to I remember the guy that when I first met Ryan and this other guy at the same time, and we were both honest with each other, like, hey, I'm still dating other people. Like we're, kind of still seeing things out. The other guy was struggling with a lot of mental health issues. And I saw myself, and he was very attractive. On paper was all the I want that. And then love Ryan, he just wasn't as he wasn't as expressive. So I was like, oh, we don't really banter. We don't really laugh. He's a little more closed off. So off the bat, I was not giving him as fair of a shot. But this other, because I thought I was so healed. I was like, I am this healed legend, and I can go in and I can save this person, I can be there for him.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when we had a conversation, and he was like, I'm battling a deep depression. And my mom looked at me and she held my hand and she said, Sabrina, I think you need to understand that this might be above your pay grade. And she was right. She was right. This guy, we talked a few months ago. He messaged me being like, I'm so happy to see your growth and everything. But he was like, I was nowhere near ready to even entertain you. And I think what we look at is you think you're so this, oh, I can do this. And then when I met Ryan, he was so solid. And I was like, oh God, am I going to be this hot mess of a version? I'm the one that's anxious. And it was like, no. We both grew. We both learned each other. We both evolved, and we both helped each other. I had such a negative connotation. I always thought a woman changed, I can be the woman that changes him. Like in the movies of, it's the bad boy, and she gets Matthew McConaughey and she convinces him to be with her. No, that's not how that works. What it ended up being was being the person that you are, being a safe space, communicating clearly, being open and receptive, being vulnerable first and saying, hey, can I share this with you? And then creating a safe space so that person can say, wow, oh, okay, let me share. That is how we changed each other as people, because I'm curious your thoughts. I am tired of the masculine feminine polarity aspect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can see my face. Yeah. I'm just not. I mean, most people don't even know this about me. I haven't identified as a gender, a specified gender in over 30 years. And it's to me, when I hear the male, female, I'm like, what are you talking about? I just don't, it's not part of my makeup or understanding of the world.
No, I've even now, Ryan will catch me because I'll keep saying the guy, because I'm a straight woman dating men. Yeah. So when I talk, and even Ryan will be like, they. And I'm like, thank you, you're right, they. I don't give a fuck who you, I don't care. If you are over the age of 18 and you are a consenting adult, that's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah. We have to say adult and consenting, because those are important.
The gender paradigm of this is how, either this is how this should be, or this is how
they should be.
They should be, or, I mean...
I saw a reel. I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah.
And she said, feminism ruined dating. And I was like, go on.
Okay, curious.
And she said, because women are so saying that, like, I don't need a man and I don't need this and I don't need this. She's like, and so women are becoming masculine and they're being disrespectful. And no man's going to handle a woman that's disrespectful because she's too masculine and not her feminine. And I stopped and I was like, so if it's masculine to be disrespectful, so men are allowed to be disrespectful to us, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I'm not allowed to embrace that aspect of me. So, but it's also then seen as disrespect.
Yeah.
Versus, I was like, wait, can we understand this a little clearly? I have really thought about this.
Yeah.
Because like I remember once I said something and Ryan's like, are you in your feminine? And we were like making fun of it.
Yeah.
And it hit me and I was like, interesting. I said, do you know what I feel right now? I was like, it's not that I'm in my feminine. I feel safe.
Yeah.
And feeling safe meant I could disarm. I could receive. I didn't have to go out and do the work.
Yeah.
That, to me, because I'm like, masculine doesn't equate to me that you have to come and chase me. It's like, I'm not a tiger. What are you running at, right? Like, what are you running after me for?
Yeah.
I think it's safety because it doesn't matter your gender. When you're safe, you can receive and you can protect.
Yes. I mean, if we can de-escalate the sort of genderized language to just the human experience, like you're talking about, of like safety, where safety doesn't have to belong to, or like the feeling of anger doesn't have to belong to any of that, then we just get to deepen into the human experiences, which is what I'm so much more interested in.
To me, that's why like when people like write like guys do that, or like I'm so tired of guys always doing this, and I'm like, hey, spoiler alert,
all do.
Women do it too. Like I have a very 50-50 split of clients.
Oh, you do?
I do, which is
interesting.
I think the reason being is because I don't sugarcoat it for anybody.
Yeah.
I think the males that come to me feel comfortable knowing that like I'm not taking the side of like men are trash. It's like no. Humans are trash.
Humans are gently used.
Humans are very good. But humans are, like my brother's always said, he's like, the one bet I'll make in life is that a human will be a human. He's like, that's a bet I'll make all day because there's nuance. To me, healing is black, white, becoming gray.
Yeah.
You're painting the strokes to understand. Like, if he wanted to, he would.
Yeah.
Is probably some of the most detrimental dating advice that you will hear.
Yes.
Because, like, I'm curious. If I said, well, you know what, Scott, you just don't want it bad enough then.
I mean, you're right.
I want to take a moment to give a loud shout out to the Embody Lab, which is one of the most incredible resources for body-based and somatic therapies. This show is all about healing, and the Embody Lab does exactly that. Whether you're on your own journey of transformation and discovery, or enhancing your skill sets in your career as like a coach or a therapist, a body worker, or really any career where you are supporting other gently used humans, the Embody Lab is your place for deep, inspiring, and impactful workshops, certificates, masterclasses, and an incredible community of like-minded folks. I love the Embody Lab, and so do so many other people that call it a platform to come home to over and over again. The Embody Lab is giving my listeners an exclusive offer, a one-time 10% off code to enhance your embodied well-being. All you have to do is go to theembodylab.com and use the code GentlyUse10 at checkout.
No, I mean,
You're like, well.
But that type of dating advice, and I want to go into a lot of the questions and dating advice that's most popular right now for you and your audience. But I think that there's clickbait, dating advice, which we've talked about. And one of the things I've really always appreciated about you is you are able to stay in the nuance. And it doesn't always mean more audience, and it doesn't always mean more accessibility, and it doesn't mean more sales, but it does mean more connection with more humans.
More authenticity.
More authenticity.
I had the video I posted this morning was about texting.
Yeah.
And someone wrote in saying, you're just too intense for me. I really need you to scale it down. I come from a very abusive background in home. And I think there's other people that would agree with me that your messaging is great, but you're far too intense and I don't like your cursing and language. And so I wrote back to her and I said, hey, I totally understand. And I said, but here's the reality. I would never want you somewhere where you don't feel comfortable. And I said, so you can also make the determination that this doesn't work, but I will be staying very much myself.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't mean, not everything needs to be for you.
No.
But when it comes to the dating advice, it's like the texting stuff. If a guy doesn't text you every day, then he's not into you. And it's like, okay, the pendulum can be also on the other side of it. Oh, so you think that someone that texts you every single day, good morning, good night, how are you, hi, hey, what's up? You think that person wants a relationship with you. Is that why you've had 7 guys in a row that do this, and yet you're still not in a relationship? But yes, they fizzle, or they ghost, or they leave, or it's a false sense of intimacy, or you've created a version of them that you think that they are. It's okay to also stop and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, maybe that isn't the best dating advice. Because the nuance component, like, okay, well, but this person hasn't texted me in a month. You're full of shit. And it's like, well, but that's nuance.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. I said the pendulum between 3 weeks tour versus every day, we can find a balance.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is that extremity.
Yeah.
Or all avoidance or narcissist and they're all this. And it's like, no, that's your personal lived experience.
Yeah.
But that's not clinically what everybody is going through.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. And even the advice of going like, what if you shared how texts make you feel? It's like, hey, this is one of my love languages. I know it might not be available to you, and please let me know if it's too much. Maybe we can work through this together as a collaborative human team.
I'll never forget when Ryan and I first started dating. This was probably like a month in, maybe not even, like 3 weeks in. And I'm a texter, your girl. But I remember even like being at my sister's mother-in-law saying, you know, he doesn't really text me. And I'll never forget, she snapped going, here we go again. Sabrina's going to ruin another relationship because this guy's not fucking texting her. And I looked at her and I was like, no, I'm not. And I was like, because there's the pattern, right? Like even my sister's mother-in-law was like, she does this every time. Yeah. And I said, no, I'm going to talk to him about it. And I remember texting Ryan. He would like text me saying like, hey, I hope his versions of text would be like, he was very consistent with plans. We're both really like, we have that anxiety with our schedule.
Oh my God.
So it worked beautifully. Yes. We were both great. This day works perfect. So he was very consistent with every week. We saw each other once or twice. We knew when I was going to see him. It was like a really nice date. He was opening up more and all of those. He wasn't a texter. And I remember, he texted me and his version of a text was like, hey, it was like a little paragraph of like, hey, here, hope you're having a great day, I'm going to be doing this. I'm hopping off my phone. Have a good night.
Wait, where are the questions of curiosity?
Well, so.
That we demand.
Well, so I was sitting there and I'm like, fuck this guy, right?
Yeah.
And so when he had sent me that, I said, hey, I would love more texting in between our dates to feel more connected to you. Is that something you're open to?
Beautiful question.
And he wrote back saying, hey, really, thank you so much for asking. Let me be clear. This is not a sign of my disinterest. On the contrary, I'm really into you and I can actually see us growing something. But let me be transparent. I work in tech. I'm on my computer for 9 hours a day and I have 3 of them. Then I'm done and I want to be with my dog. I want to be with my friends. I want to be with my family. The last thing I want to do is create a relationship on a smaller screen that's in my pocket the whole time because I'm trying to be present. If this works for you, or if he was like, I'm more than happy to have consistent plans and we can call instead of text. I totally understand though if that doesn't work for you, you tell me. And it was like, so I was wet.
That's why.
It was.
Stop stealing my lines.
Wet dream. It was so hot. I was so turned on by that because I was like, okay, cool. This is collaborative. We're willing to say, and I said, great. You know what? FaceTimes would be great or a call. And we found our groove. And then over like after 6 months, he started texting me good morning every morning. Hey, babe, how's your day?
Yeah.
Knowing, and he would tell me honestly, I hate doing this.
Yeah.
But I know it means something to you.
Yeah.
I think my point here is like, you have every right to set a boundary earlier on. That doesn't mean that over time you can't reassess the boundary. But for fuck's sake, spending hours on your phone, texting somebody when you've either never met this person, maybe you've had 2 hours with this person, you're not getting to know somebody based off words on a screen that you get to create. How do you feel when you receive those words? Yeah. How do you feel reading them? How do you feel like they would? Here's how I would say it to you is usually what happens. And then at that point, but you're not connecting.
Yeah.
You're just waiting for this person to hopefully not leave you.
Yeah.
And to me, what I see texting, especially in the early stages of dating with that anxiety, that high anxiety associated with it, it's not about them. This is about you. This is about the fact that you don't want to be left. You don't want to be abandoned. You want to be reaffirmed. Because let me ask you, what is good morning? How is that changing your day besides, look, I'm not going to be abandoned?
Yes. Well said, as always. It's so true. And I didn't get the good morning text, so can you just hug me?
I'll give you all of it.
This show is also brought to you by the absolutely stunning and powerful tools of transformation that are created by Omala. Oof, even the name Omala transports you to a place of flow and vitality. These are some of my favorite products ever. They have an amazing color-changing yoga mat that responds to your temperature and presence and reflects back your posture in real time.
There's this incredible smelling skin balm candle that heats up to activate all the essential oils and vitamins that your skin has been craving. I mean, look, if I could live in a giant bath of this candle, I would 100% do it. They also have these journals that lead you into profound insight, and then you get to plant those journals to create a stunning flower garden. What? I mean, if that's not deep and inventive, I don't know what is. If you're someone who desires to live a luxurious flow of life and who believes in transformative wellness, then you have to check out Omala. Omala is giving my listeners an exclusive discount to treat yourself to something that is as special as you, boo. All you have to do is go to omala.com, that's OMALA.com, and use the code DrScott10 at checkout. And a portion of every purchase goes to an incredible charity. You got this.
I was that girl, though. Like, I would wake up in the middle of the night to see if this person texts me because they were in a different time zone. And it's crippling. Yeah. But then you start to realize, like, because I did that. I had a guy for like 3 months texting me every single day. And it was like, but then he didn't do anything beyond that. Yeah. And then I was on an addiction loop and it was not fun.
Oof. How'd you get out?
I had to be really real with myself. And this was when I started to like kind of implement this type of work. Like I had been doing like 4 years of therapy to understand it. And then I was like, okay, it's time to put the rubber meets the road. And I remember just like it was every single day. It would be the same fucking thing. It was almost like a Groundhog's Day where you're like, oh, it's the same text every morning. That's when I just started to be more upfront with him of like, hey, okay, what else am I going to get? Like, yeah, this good morning text. And it's like, are you going to call me? Are you planning your trip back? Like, it was just a lot of him buying time to decide. I didn't really allow it. Yeah. And I think that's it. It's like boundaries. Hey, it's great to hear from you, but I'd much rather see you. Can we make that happen? Yeah. And then I'd get, oh, babe, I don't know my schedule. And it's like, cool. Contact me when you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Oof. Boundaries. Get them.
I find them sexy as fuck.
I find them sexy as fuck, and
when used appropriately.
When used appropriately, and oftentimes they're weaponized. That's my boundary.
Yeah.
And that's my inner obnoxious voice when I say it. You know, like
hand on the hip,
waving my finger. That's my boundary, and I sing it sometimes too, like that.
Valid. Regulating the nervous system while you're saying it.
But I mean, I think for so long, my boundaries were walls. And it took me a long time to figure out that a boundary is like a living, breathing membrane that has to be able to be semi-permeable at times, less permeable at times, and flexible. Like if we don't have an adaptable, flexible boundary, we don't have agency.
100%. The thing about boundaries, they don't keep people out, they protect what's in.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember reading, it's like, I'm setting a boundary so I can keep you in my life, not so I can get rid of you. And it's like, if I wanted to get rid of you, I would have said, I'm done. Please leave me alone. But it's like when my partner set that boundary, he didn't say, you have to stop doing this. Like I had someone write in and they said, well, my boundary is that she has to text me every day and she's disrespecting me. And I said, that's not a boundary, that's control. You cannot, my boundary isn't that you have to do something for me. My boundary, hi, please remove your shoes when you come into the door. Do I need to text you prior to be like, if you don't remove your shoes when you come in the house, by the way, no, I set the boundary when it comes to the time. Hi, when you come in, hi, please remove your shoes. You kept walk. Hi, I asked you to kindly please remove your shoes. That's so that you're welcomed into my house. So I'm sustainable and I'm comfortable with this, not so that I can kick you out of the house.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so well said. That's like, it's not an easy discernment between a boundary and a control. And I think so often...
Jonah Hill.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so often it becomes confusing. And I think whenever as a culture we've had such a lack and then there's such a call forward for something, we're going to have the Goldilocks swing.
Yeah. The pendulum swings too severely.
Yeah, always. And so I feel like hopefully we're finding our groove in the same way that we're lessening the sort of diagnostics of like, my partner's this, as opposed to like, how is that a way to not check in with yourself of what's happening? Sometimes it is helpful of like, this is the pattern of which they are operating so that I can find myself in relation to that, but it too often is used as a way to avoid contact with our own selves or our own responsibility or just a way of dismissing someone and the nuance of them being a gently used human and learning about it.
My favorite way to assess, like for me, what I started to understand, how do I set boundaries, was what am I no longer willing to accept that I used to? Like that was a good way. That was a place for me to start of like, okay, my father, super inconsistent. I am not going to date people that are that inconsistent. That was just not negotiable for me. A boundary might, like you have to be done with your ex, right? Like that's all you, if you're not, that's okay. Well, then we're not going to continue. But it's important for me to show up authentically that you are also done with your shit. Right? Like that's okay. And if not, that's totally cool. Then you don't get to come into the house because I am not interested in being your therapist. Like, and I said this once and people were confused and I'm like, I'm not your friend. I'm not. I'm your lover. I'm your partner. I can be a friend at times, but a friend to me is whatever. I'll see them in 3 weeks. You know, like I treat my friends with respect, but I might not be my most vulnerable with them. And my partner is not just my friend. I'm not your therapist. I am not out of those things.
Or a parent.
Exactly. I want your partner, not a parent. Like, and that's my number one thing, especially with dating, is like when I hear what I see where I think a lot of people go back to being a kid, like I regressed, was when I get this one question, what do I do? And people will write in this whole thing where it's very clear what they should do. And that's not my position to tell you. I'm not you. I'm not going to live your life. But it's very obvious as they start to write in, you're like, I think the answer's in the question.
Yeah.
But when I hear, what do I do? It's like, so you don't think you have a choice. And when you don't think you have a choice, and this person's treating me terribly, but what do I do? It's like, well, you might not like the answer. But when I start to see, I'm like, how old do you feel? I feel like a kid again. It's like, right, because you're regressing back to that thinking, I only get one pair of caregivers. Oh my God, if I don't have them, I'm going to die. But this isn't your parents. This isn't mom or dad. This is some schmo you met on Hinge. You know? Like.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky, if it's on Hinge, it's like, well, even on Tinder, it's like, please, are they real? So we have to be cognizant of like, does the pinch match the ouch? Right? The amount amount that I'm giving to this person when I don't know who they are doesn't really add up. No. Because then I'm taking it away from giving myself that attention.
Yeah. And that's essential. We can't be in a relationship if we are draining ourselves, chasing after, focusing on other people, diagnosing other people. That all takes energy and attention, to which it is depriving us of that essential nourishment.
100%. Anytime I do like that, my narcissist or my avoidant, or I think this guy's this, and it's like you're playing detective about them. Because if you understand, and I get it, the brain's fucked, right? The brain thinks like, oh, if I just understand it. If I understand it, then I'll get it. And it's like, I could tell when people ask me why, and I'm like, okay, so I don't know why, right? Like my friend Britt Frank, she's a brilliant neuropsychotherapist. I don't know if you know Britt. Yeah. She always says, reframe why to I don't like. Yeah. She's like, why is not helping? And so when people ask, I'm like, okay, so if I told you the why, like, why didn't this guy call me? Yeah. If I said, somebody else, right? If I just gave you an answer, then there's going to be 1,000 more questions because it's not about the why they.
No. Why brings you on the merry-go-round of pain?
I've been there.
Yeah,
I've bought tickets. I've read the
ride.
I
have a year pass, honey.
And even me, when I catch myself, why, or like any of that, the first thing I do, especially when you're dating, is like, fine, if your brain's going crazy, one thing that you could do to fucking stop all that, how do I feel in my body? Right? Like, I know that you're big on somatic. It's like, how do I feel in my body right now? Do I feel like the other night I was watching TV with Ryan and I just felt anxious and I couldn't figure, and you're like, but I'm on paper, I'm okay. And I was holding my phone and I was like, what do I need right now? Like water, food, do I need air, basic necessities? And I was like, not this. And I put my phone down. And it's like, it's okay to assess, what do I need right now for me to just function? You know what? I need some water. This bitch hasn't drank all day.
Yes.
Because those are those basic needs that go out the window when we're dysregulated and hyper-focused on someone else.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things my therapist ever said to me, I was complaining about a relationship pretty consecutively through the sessions. And she just stopped me. She lifted her hand up and she goes, can I ask you something? And I was like, sure, of course. Assuming that she was going to ask me about their behavior patterns. And she just said, how do you want to show up in a relationship? And it was such, perfect timing, gentleness, love. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't attended to myself in a long time. And it shifted everything of like, despite how I am perceiving them and the story I have in my mind about them, how do I want to show up as a human being in any relationship, including this one? And it shifted so much.
You know what's funny about those stories too? When we revisit them later, after, and you're like, I really spun that. Like I think of someone, I'm like, you're a writer, girl. You are brilliant with the way that you created this entire narrative that didn't actually exist. Because like listen, I know that there's so many different schools of thought. There's different types of therapy. For me, what really fucking resonated was DBT. Yeah. I love challenging my thoughts. Yeah. I love what facts do I have to back this up. Yeah. Like it was powerful for me. And then of course I learned like parts work. You take a little from everybody and you pepper it in. But that was something really big for me of like, how is this serving me? Mm-hmm. And I think like I had done a video of like, instead of ghosting, say this. And the amount of people that are like, well, why would I give them the time of day? And it's like, because it's not about them and that's what you're missing. Show up. Anytime I do something of like, ask these questions on a first date, the amount of people like, this isn't a job interview. And it's like, well, here's the reality. When I met my partner, to this day, I ask him, why did you want to go out with me again after our first date? And
such a great question.
I was like, what made you want to go out with me again? And his response was, the questions you asked. He was like, you were different than the women I've dated, and you were exactly what I was looking for. He was like, you had the depth, you were vulnerable. He was like, you weren't scared of sharing, but you weren't oversharing. He was like, you knew when to stop. And I asked, do you want to get married? Do you want to have kids? What's your religion, your race? Like, how do you see all of that? Do you want to do this in 10 years? Would you live here? Just to understand, what life are you trying to build? Yeah. And I will never forget what he told me on our first date was, I don't want to fit into your life and I don't want you to fit into mine. I want to co-create a life together. Wow. And I was able to, that sentence, I held him accountable to it as we would date, because I'd be like, I'm sorry, you made a decision without me. Now that doesn't sound like we're co-creating this life together. Now, and he'd be like, you're right. I apologize. That goes against the kind of negotiations that we agreed on. Yeah. Show up as the fucking partner you want to receive so that the partner you want to receive can say, found him. Yeah. Because the more you show up being like, I'm not asking those questions. I'm just going to sit on this date and I'm just going to, cool, play the cool girl all you want. That person's going to go, she doesn't have any depth. This isn't what I'm looking for. Exactly. And if it's too much depth, great. The door's over there. Feel free. Bye. Either go in or go out, but stop fucking blocking the view, because then nobody else can come in.
Everything you say is a fucking t-shirt. Love you so much.
You too.
What would we say is the hottest question you get right now, and your advice for it as we find our landing?
There's a few. It depends on the topic. Yeah. I get quite often like, how do I get out of a situationship? And it's like, start expressing yourself. I think most of my answers come with start expressing yourself. Or I think the number one question I get, I would say overall is, and it's I'm curious to see your thoughts when I even say it. How do I fix the anxiety, or how do I get rid of my anxiety? And so that is all day, every day. How do I stop being anxious when this person doesn't text me? And I'm like, oh, well, that's the problem. You want to get rid of it. Yeah. That's the issue.
As opposed to meet it.
Live with it.
Yeah.
You got it's a roommate. She's there for life. Like Inside Out 2. Yeah. I loved that movie. I cried when the little anxiety, I don't know if you saw it. I cried.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh my God. When you see it, you'll see me. Yeah. And she's that sharp. If she were pink, it would have actually been me. But that's a part of you. And so the more we try to like shame and blame and God, I wish I wasn't like this. Or like when I ask people, like, if there was a little you here, like what would she need to hear? You're fine. Okay. Like stop. You're fine. Like relax. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's validating. Right. Like that's going to make you feel better as an adult, let alone a child. Yeah. And so I think that is probably the number one thing. How do I fix this? How do I get rid of it? And it's like, you don't. You can heal it. But you're not broken. There's nothing to fix. And you don't get rid of it because there's nothing for you to. Yeah. What, are you going to get rid of you? Yeah. I mean, let me know when you could do that. If a lobotomy is going to help this, that's a different story. But since it's not, I think that would be it, is like, stay true to yourself. Find out who the fuck you actually are and what you genuinely need or want in a relationship so that you can actually get that.
I love that. I could talk to you all day.
I know. But we will be after this when you're on the Sabrina Zohar show. Yeah.
Hello. Where can people find you, get to connect with you, study with you, marry you?
Oh, Ryan might have an issue with that one. But nonetheless, well, it depends on the country, right? Depends on where we live. So the Sabrina Zohar Show is the podcast, and sabrinazohar.com, or the Sabrina Zohar Show on, it's always fun when you have different handles, Instagram, and then TikTok and Insta, Sabrina.Zohar if you want my personal shit. But yeah, just everything there is, if you want some tough love dating advice, I got you.
And she really does. She's really got you. I love you so much.
Love you too.
I love you. I love you. I love you. And to all my gently used humans out there, we also love you.
Thank you for listening to the Gently Used Human podcast with Dr. Scott Lyons and friends. Visit gentlyused.com for fun extras. And don't forget to spill the tea and gossip about the show with all your friends and frenemies. And you know what? Show us some love by giving us 5 stars and leaving a review in your favorite apps. This helps us connect with all the other gently used humans out there. Oh, and by the way, You look fierce today.